Hey guys, we are live. Yes, we are live. Yeah, I just received a message from Rafa. I couldn't see that we are live, but we are finally live. Welcome to the Sports Bet Daily Show, the Tennis Aces. And yes, I called the new show the Tennis Aces because these two guys are the Tennis Aces in terms of betting. And we have Snize and James from Tennis Pilot with us today to break down the Cincinnati Masters, the Cincinnati Open, the Western and Southern, name it how you want it. We are here to deliver some good picks week in and week out. Hi, guys. Welcome to the show. How have you been?
Hello. Not too bad, thank you.
Of course, not too bad.
Yeah.
How about this, nice?
Oh, well, I'm doing good. I'm fighting today. I wanted to just give a special shout out. Today is Left-Handers Day. We are an oppressed species. Scissors weren't made for us. School benches weren't made for us. Teachers, they try to force us into a degenerate right-handed lifestyle. We are oppressed, and still we rise.
My
Left-handed
dad
people.
talks about
Let's
this all the time because my dad's left-handed as well. He literally does a talk at a university about left-handedness. So,
The,
yeah.
the funny thing is, my daughter is left-handed. She is 2 years old in 1 week, and she's left-handed. I'm left-footed. When I played football in my 15th, 20th professional football, I was left-footed. So, but not at high level. Don't think that I was at the top team. No, just started professional, and after that, just for fun. But yes, only with the left foot. I'm like Gheorghe Hagi, because we know the great Gheorghe Hagi, who knows football from and is from also from Romania, knows what I'm talking about. But let's get started here with the WTA side, and we have Andreescu. Great outright there last week on the Rogers Cup from James on Andreescu, 33-1, a winner. I was very happy that Serena Williams withdrew from that final. I don't know how she arrived there, but this is another story. But Andreescu, born Romanian, playing for Canada, made me very happy to see her winning that Masters title. She's not playing the Cincinnati Open, so we have Ashley Barty, huge favorite, not huge favorite, favorites to win this competition at 8.0. Naomi Osaka at 8.0. Simona Halep 8.5. Karolina Pliskova at 9. Serena Williams at 9. So I don't know if there's any value bet on this part of the world, but maybe James will give us, or you, Nice, will give us another excellent set of odds for this week. So let's get started here. Nice. What is your approach, mate?
we are here in Cincinnati, or the Western and Southern Open. We play on quick DecoTurf 2 hard courts here that have slowed down considerably with the years, but should, in theory, serve the big service and big hits well, since it's quite hot and humid here, making the ball travel. We have Novak Djokovic and Kiki Bertens, the reigning champions here. But with the US Open coming very soon, only 2 weeks away, there is some caution you have to proceed with here in the tournament. So for the women's, looking at the draw, we can see that Andreescu, as you mentioned, withdrew. Serena Williams is still in, even though she retired in the Toronto final with back spasms. We don't know her fitness. Simona Halep is another player who retired in her last match. We don't know about her fitness. So there are a lot of questions about the top players here. But I do have an outright that I like in this tournament here, and that's Naomi Osaka, the Japanese player, former world number one. She looked really relieved and refreshed in Toronto, and she's been struggling for quite some time. She recently released an open letter addressing these issues and how she's worked hard and just had some time off to reflect on herself, on her tennis, and to find a joy in it again. And it certainly looks the part. And last year's US Open champion is definitely a player to be feared when she is on form. She has a pretty good draw. Obviously, she has Elina Svitolina and Serena Williams in her quarter. But I don't think, and I've said this many times, I don't think Svitolina has been any good since her knee injury. She's still struggling for her best tennis. While obviously we don't know Serena Williams' fitness. US Open, her home slam, only 2 weeks away. How will she proceed here? So definitely like Naomi Osaka to come through there, and I bet her this weekend at 9 times the money to win when the market opens again. I don't have it at the moment, but she should be thereabouts since she hasn't played yet. So definitely the one I'm going for.
You said former number one, but I think that she's actual number one
She's
since
number one,
Monday. She's back
Party.
to number one after the Rogers Cup, despite not winning the competition or something. But many players dropped a lot of points there, and so she's back at number one there at 9.0. Beautiful odds on Naomi Osaka, which I think that without her ex former coach, she will continue to struggle, if you ask me. But maybe it's time for her to bounce back and to return to winning ways. How about you, James? Another 33 to 1?
We can all hope. So I think this one, it's kind of similar to last week in my eyes, in that, again, it's a very open draw. I took Andreescu on a chance, as I said, that she would play her best tennis. She kind of did. I mean, she was very lucky, obviously, in places. You have to get a lot of luck to win these tournaments, certainly in the final. But yeah, I think this week I had more difficulty finding players that I was interested in at all, really, to be honest. I think Bencic was someone that I was interested in. I mean, I know, Snize, you were interested in her last week. I actually thought she was fine, apart from her last match where she was pretty dismal. In general, I think her level seems to be increasing, but of course she's lost in the first round here by retirement, so kind of saved some money on that one. But when I looked at the draw for this originally, the first thing I noticed is that, at least in my thinking about this, the top half seems probably like the place to avoid, and I would be happier taking an outright in the bottom half. I'm not sure how I feel about Osaka, personally. I thought she was fine last week, although I'm not sure how well I feel she played against Serena. Of course, it's always difficult. I think she probably out-rallied Serena and struggled. Serena struggled from the baseline, but was very solid on serve. So that's kind of typical. But certainly I think the bottom half of the draw looks weaker. I think that looks like the place to go if you're wanting to find a longer odds tip, especially with Halep, as you say, retiring last week. That's quite a big opener there. I can't imagine that they're going to be putting their 100% in this close to the slam. Maybe they will, but especially someone like Halep, I feel like she has to set her sights on the US. She's kind of just won Wimbledon. It comes around so fast that you have to prioritize. Now, I think I'm going to skip this week on the outrights. There were a few that, to me, made some sense. And I think the problem I had was that my instinct didn't take me the same way it did with Andreescu. I'm not sure if there's someone who I think has the higher level or at the minute, but there were a couple of people who I thought looked potential. Obviously, you have last year's champion, you have Bertens, who hasn't looked particularly strong to me, but is a decent price at 26. There's some potential in that one, again, in the weaker half behind that. And then Vekic, again, I thought was someone who potentially, I feel like she's been playing well. I've seen her 2 or 3 matches recently, and she's been playing well. So those were 2 that I thought I kind of half caught my eye. But the main advice I would have if people were looking to bet on this, I feel more comfortable betting in the bottom half if you're going to take a longer odds player. From the top of the market, I know Barty wasn't very good last week. but she seems to have been quite a model of consistency this year as a whole. So I'm not sure that I'd want to be directly opposing her personally again. And then Pliskova. Difficult because, again, these number 3 in the world, these players are surely going to be thinking about the US at this point again. But I thought, apart from in defeat to Andreescu, where she got bageled in the first set, which was very bad, I thought in general she was pretty solid last week, and these quicker conditions should suit Pliskova pretty well. So I was less inclined to get involved in those in the top of the draw. And yeah, I think the bottom half is
huge surprises already. Wozniacki out with the defeat against Yastremska. Kerber out. Kontaveit pulled off the upset there. Bertens is playing now with Venus Williams. I really think that next season, I have a feeling that next season, all the young guns that are now on the tour, on the WTA tour, will start to beat the hell out of this Wozniacki, Kerber, and Venus Williams, Serena Williams, and so on. Pliskova and so on. I think that players like Yastremska, like Bencic, like Andreescu will come from behind and take the WTA on their side, you know. I think that probably Simona Halep with her chill, let's say, because after she said that she wants to have a chill year, you know. So she had a chill year and she won the Wimbledon. I think that she will be the only one at that top level with these young players that are playing better and better, hitting the ball more powerful with every time that they're playing a match. So this is my feeling, but let's wait and see. Do you have, Snize, any favorite plays for this WTA side on the Cincinnati Open? You can also give from now, if you want, some matches that are starting in 20 minutes. Jabeur versus Jennifer Brady, and I really like this Jennifer Brady for an ACA, if you ask me, at 1.52. I really loved her last week against Halep. Madison Keys versus Muguruza, Wang versus Sieg, Tsurenko Puig, and Strichova Kasatkina. I know that you already wrote an article for us over to oddsmarket.com for tomorrow's matches, and I'm sure that many people will follow you there. Also, James wrote a treble article that is already up on the site, so be sure to check that out because last week he won his treble bet, so it's time for this week for him to shine again after that beautiful run over the Rogers Cup. Thank you, Natalie, for joining us on chat. So Natalie is watching us from the shadow. Be sure what you're saying there. So Snize, do you have any favorite plays, top plays that you love for the women's side?
Yeah, and the plays I have caught my eye both go off tomorrow. So moving on to tomorrow, we have a matchup which I've already written an article about this match, but the price is still around, so I'm going to give it out here also, and it's Yulia Putintseva versus Sloane Stephens. So I was on Putintseva in her match versus Jelena Ostapenko. I said that she had been quite consistent. She has a lot of variety to her game, and that Ostapenko, a big hitter who is desperately struggling for form right now, would lose that match, which she did. And right now she takes on another big hitter in Sloane Stephens. And the American hasn't really been quite right for quite some time now. Even now when we're returning to the North American hard courts, which should be her hunting ground, she hasn't looked good. She's on a 3-match losing streak right now. Out of those 3 losses, the last 2 have been a significant favorite to Rebecca Peterson, ranked 73 in the world, and Marie Bouzkova, ranked 53 in the world. And both of these losses were pretty alarming, as Sloane just shown to be nowhere near her best level. She won less than 50% of her total service points in those matches, which is quite a concern, as she has a powerful serve, powerful ground strokes, good defensive player. So I don't know. She's just looked disinterested at times playing tennis, and she's already lost a lot of points. She was defending finalist points in Toronto, Montreal, the Rogers Cup, and she's simply shown no improvement. Petisova has already won the last 2 matches versus Sloane in Nürnberg last year and Sydney earlier this year. She's a fighter. She never gives in, and right now we can get her at 2.30. So her money line would be my recommended bet there. As for the other bet, it's also an underdog, and it's going to be on the Chinese player Snize Sheng to win versus Arina Sabalenka at 2.95. She plays a very shrewd game, the Chinese. She is a massive frustration to her opponents. She plays a lot of loopy balls. She runs pretty much every ball down. She has a lot of variety to her game, coming forward to the net, using her experience from doubles play. Maria Sakkari and Arina Sabalenka were both victimized to this in San Jose a few weeks ago. Sakkari was quoting saying, "This isn't tennis," just throwing her arms up and down, incredibly frustrated in that match. And Sabalenka was as well. Had some fun interactions with their coaches there. Sheng won the title in that tournament, and she is now revitalized after an early exit in Toronto, where now she's back here. She beat Kuzmova in straight sets. And Sabalenka is a player that has an enormous amount of power, but she's vulnerable if you can get her moving off the baseline and get her off her strike zone. And that's what Sheng has been able to do in these head-to-head matchups. She's won both of them, including that one just a few days ago. So at this price, I'm going to have to go with her again to frustrate Sabalenka, to move her around, get into her head, and get the win.
Yeah, if the mentality of a player is questionable, you can always go for an underdog, and such an underdog like Siech, who can frustrate players, like you said, can offer some great value. Don07 says, I like Halep. She's fine, but her nose is out of shape. We're not talking about the looks here, but I can talk with the boys to do a special show to give our top 10 favorite players on how they look. If you want that, and if that will bring you here to watch our shows, we can do that for you. He loves the looks of Natalie. Yes, Natalie is beautiful. She's the most beautiful host in the industry, and not only that.
Oh, Alex,
so let's continue. What you said? Sorry.
Come on, you're beautiful as well, Alex. Come on, it's got to be comparable.
Yeah, thank you. I'm talking about on the women on the WTA side. So yeah, thank you, James. No homo here, guys. Don't worry about that.
No homo.
Go on, James. Give us your favorite plays for the women's side, please.
Okay, so the first play is from the treble, which is Georges against Kenin, and in the treble I took Georges plus 3.5 games for a couple of reasons. I mean, I know it's the women's side, but to get that handicap seems strange to me on a match that's pretty even, because of course if she wins a set and then doesn't lose dominantly, it's quite likely that comes in. But it really is the same logic as last week, where I tipped Andreescu to beat Kenin as a slight underdog. It's kind of the same logic. Georges is a very good underdog historically. She's not been as good this year, although I would argue that she's been slightly unfortunate with some key points, some key kind of sequences in sets. Losing, for example, 7-6, 7-6 against Halep. So she's had 6 matches as the underdog this year, and only won 2 of them. So you would have lost money betting on her. But actually, she's covered the handicap in 4 of the 6, which means you would have netted a decent profit if you were to take plus 3.5 games at the available price now, which is 1.8, 1.85 with Pinnacle. When these two played at the end of last year, Kenin won that in 3 sets, actually as the underdog on that day, and probably good value on the day. But she lost the second set 6-2, and so the handicap came in comfortably. And I think there's a couple of key points here. This is quicker courts, as Snize pointed out. In theory, getting slower, although if you look at the stats, I don't think it really bears it out. So I'm a little bit mixed on that. The whole percentages are pretty consistent the last 3 years. And so George's is 5'11", Kenin's I think 5'7". So they're neither of them are small, but George's is actively tall and a very power-orientated player. That might backfire in Cincinnati in the sense that it sometimes means that people can't control the ball, but she has actually got a decent record here. She's played well here in the past, where I think she beat Radwanska and Svitolina in the same week when they were ranked 10 and 5 in the world. So she's played well on these courts in the past. She's also, so last week she played Bencic at a very similar price, lost that match, but she covered the handicap fairly comfortably. And again, from what I've seen of her recently, she's kind of struggling to keep her belief and momentum up at the key points, but she's playing very solid matches. Her game is so aggressive and so powerful that she can kind of hit most players off the court. If she has even just one decent set, she may well cover the handicap just from that. And of course, in the quicker conditions, someone like Kenin, who's a bit smaller, her game is based on variety more so than power, although she's a well-rounded player. She might struggle. She hasn't played that well here in the past. And it's the kind of situation where I would expect it to be tight. I probably would expect Kenin to win in the end because the form is very much with her, the momentum's with her. But I think it'll probably be a struggle. So that's the first one. The second one that I considered, and I mean, I'll have a play with it. I'll have a go with it. I'm not as sure with this one, but I think I'll have a go with it. Is actually the match you were talking about with Halep. Is Alexandrova. So there's a few basic points here. Alexandrova is not someone who I would necessarily tend to expect to do that well against someone like Halep. She's never really done that much against top 10 opponents. But of course, after the retirement last week, you've got to think that she's likely to be vulnerable. Alexandrova looked very strong in the opening round of this tournament against Suarez Navarro. And she looked very strong, I would argue, last week in Toronto, where in the end, she lost to Serena in straight sets, but she led by a break in the first set. I think maybe in the second set as well, although I can't remember. But I thought she looked very solid. And again, these kind of conditions, I don't think that they're going to be... I think they're probably going to suit her relatively well, would be my feeling. And if she catches Halep cold in this opening round, then I think she could well go quite well. I didn't think Halep was very good at all really last week, and obviously then she retired. So I think you could take a chance on her. She's 3.8
sorry, James. She declared today that she's feeling good, that she doesn't have any problems. But I still think that you remember last week how we went +5 on the Asian handicap against Halep. I think that plus 4.5 against that 1.83 looks a good set of odds against Halep.
Cool, yeah. So should we go? I think we can go with that one. It's not a match I was that sure of either way, given the uncertainty with Halep. So I'm happy to go with that. Yeah, the plus 4.5 at 1.8. I think that's sensible.
Okay, who are the hottest women on the tour? I have a top, not a top exactly. I will not say 1, 2, 3, 4, but I really love the looks of Camila Giorgi, for example. I really love the looks of Sloane Stephens. I really like Sorana Cârstea or Mandy Minella a little bit. Yeah, this kind of four. What about you guys? Let's answer all of us to the same question. Snize.
For me, it's definitely a player that's quite recently broke into the top 100, a player that many aren't really talking about that much, and it's Paula Badosa Gibert, the Spaniard. She's absolutely gorgeous. Definitely my favorite WTA player
Your
when
type.
it comes to that department.
Yeah, your type. James?
I have no idea. I mean, I think I will have to be very careful.
Halep.
Halep. Interesting choice from you. I have no idea, Alex.
She's not bad. She's not bad. She's cute. I can take that. She's not bad at all. She has a nice smile. She's cute. I would not put her on the top 5, but yeah, she can make the top 10.
Okay, cool.
Any thoughts on Wang versus Xie? James Ross is asking us. Any of you guys have any thoughts on this match? Maybe it's nice.
So I originally looked at this match. There were some injury concerns there with Qiang Wang, which put me off it in the end. It should be a really close matchup. Both of these players don't really rely on power. Have quite underwhelming serves and ground strokes in general. So they rely on variety, movement, and overall craft to beguile their opponents. So it should be a return-dominated matchup. It's correctly priced as a pick'em. I really have no idea how it goes. I think right now, on current form, I would probably lean a bit towards Sue Shea, who I think has played pretty decently over the last few weeks here. But yeah, it's going to be close. But I would probably have to go Shea. She's won the last 2 matches as well, so Shea for me there.
Okay, do you have any thoughts on Barty versus Sharapova tomorrow? Do you think that Barty is a very good pick for a treble bet, for a Naka bet?
Yeah, I think she is. I mean, she didn't look that great last week, admittedly, but been, as James said earlier, one of the most consistent forces. Sharapova survived by the skin of her teeth. She was extremely nervous towards the end of the risk match and just barely crawled over the line. She double faulted several times on key points, on match points, almost threw it away actually. And she's still, searching for her best tennis, searching for her top confidence. Barty is a much better player than Sharapova is right now. I would definitely think that Barty gets over these recent losses here and goes to work and gets the win.
Yeah, I would.
Okay,
I would
that's
agree.
it for the. Sorry, James, go on.
No, I think that's right. I think the only worry that I would have is the point that we keep making about the top players being obviously biased towards the slams, but Barty didn't do anything last week. So I would assume that she'd want to play at least a couple of matches, get herself into it, test herself a little bit, and then maybe relax a little bit more.
Got it. Okay, that's it for the WTA side. We are going on the men's side, the ATP Cincinnati. Very, very weird. Novak Djokovic 2.42, Federer 4.4, Alexander Zverev at 17 right now. And what a draw. Dominic Thiem pulls off the Cincinnati Tennis Masters. And we have contenders on the top half. Djokovic, Isner, Kyrgios, Khachanov, Federer, Wawrinka, Medvedev, Tsitsipas. And on the bottom half, Zverev, and that's about it. I don't think that is there anyone else who can upset Zverev in that bottom half, despite the struggles with Zverev this season. I think that Zverev at 17 and maybe to cash out later later in the stage. So James, what do you think about this crazy draw?
Yeah, it's quite funny. We had obviously Rafa at the bottom, who's pulled out. Then we do have Kay, who's still here, who in theory should contend. Had Cilic, who I actually, to my own behest, decided to go with this week, who of course put in a dismal performance against Albot. Yeah. Did you go with that one as well, Snize?
Yep, was on him quarter and to win outright.
I mean, I think it was fairly sensible. He seemed to have been picking up. But anyway, who can beat Zverev? I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, From the way
Everyone.
that Kekmanovic played in the last round, I wouldn't be surprised. He's priced at 2.62, which I think reflects the struggles of the German. I think obviously if Zverev can play anything, even if he can get any form back, then he should be winning that half, with something to spare. I mean, especially with Kei not playing that well, he's got a tough round coming up against Nishioka. That's not not an easy draw. But I think you've hit the nail on the head there, which is that the top half is much, much trickier to pick an outright from. And I would be quite surprised if one of Novak or Federer didn't make the final from that half. I think there are options you could take if you wanted to be, explorative, but I probably would stay away from the top half. I think the bottom half offers more opportunities. I personally took a chance on Hurkacz at 151 at the start of the week. He'll be playing his match tonight, so if he wins that, the price will come down quite a bit. But if he loses it, you'll have saved yourself some money. And I think the other one that makes some sense to me is Opelka, who of course is now in a match that's been interrupted with Coric. They're in a deciding set. So again, if those two manage to get through their match, one or both of them, I would expect them to be a decent shout in this half. I think a lot of this came about really for me just the contrast between the two halves. Even when Rafa was in, it was very clear that the bottom half was weak, and that taking in some way opposing Zverev to me is just, it's been the obvious play all year. And again, I can't really see why he's 17 for this one. It feels too short for me. He hasn't been at an elite level at all for a while. Roberto is the other obvious option.
So you were expecting more, right? Around 25?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tricky because the pricing for the tournaments, one of the things that I tend to oppose is the long-term bias for outrights. They don't tend, with the outright markets, they tend to price them up based on 12-month data, and that's often just silly to me. Because Alex's data looks fine, but anyone who watches him can tell you that he's not fine. And there's a lot of reasons why. He's having this legal battle right now with his former manager. He's clearly not in a good headspace. I remember his former coach Lendl talked about this a little bit as well, how it's just very difficult when you've got a player whose head is not on the court. So again, it's a little bit of a broken record at this point, but I think opposing Zverev is fine. I honestly, the way that Kekmanovic played against Felix, I would not be surprised if he takes him out. He's got a very aggressive game. He will not let Zverev be passive. Zverev is going to have to try and take this to him. But yeah, either taking Hurkacz or Bautista, the winner of that, I think, has a great chance to go deep this week in that half. I would have said Cilic, but obviously he's lost now, so that's quite difficult. And I'd kind of prefer that half. I think opposing Nishikori is also perfectly fine, hence why I quite like Opelka if he wins that match against Coric. We know that Isner has done very well in Cincinnati in the past. As Snize said earlier, the courts are generally fast. They're quite high bouncing. It's hot and humid. These are conditions which tend to suit the big hitters, the heavy hitters. So I would be going down that route if I was looking for an outright. But yeah, for me, Hurkacz or Bautista, the winner of that. And then if he gets through it, I would say Opelka is also worth a go.
Okay, before I ask you, Snize, your approach on this tournament outright bets, we have James asking us Medvedev versus Edmund, starting in few. If Medvedev covers the minus 2.5 over Edmund, or if you have a take on this specific match.
Shall I go for that one, Snize? Or do you
Yeah,
want to go?
please.
So I would. So there's a couple of angles you can take for this. The first thing is Medvedev will surely be jaded at this point, and so in a basic sense, I'm surprised they have Edmund the same price they had him when they last met. So you could just take a chance on Edmund. I wouldn't go for the handicap because I think Medvedev is not unlikely to retire after the first set if he loses it, especially if he loses it badly. So that's one angle. The second angle that actually does make some sense to me is to take a really long shot chance on Edmund doing something like bageling Medvedev in the second set. It sounds a bit silly. Obviously, it very much goes against recent form, but you can currently get 80-1 on Edmund bageling Medvedev, and actually that came in when they played on clay in Madrid. Edmund bageled him, and obviously very different circumstance now, but I can very much see a scenario where Medvedev comes out, tries to play a match, just is not well enough, is not fit. He's surely got some mental scars from that demolition against Nadal, where he just couldn't play tennis, and he got bageled in the second set there, of course. That was Nadal. But yeah, if you can get 80-1 with Boyle Sports, I think that's a perfectly reasonable bet. The other option to take, which kind of covers a couple more possibilities, is to go for the under 8.5 games in the second set. Because, of course, if Medvedev's knackered, Edmund might win 6-2, 6-1, or 6-love. But if Medvedev's not knackered, last week, Medvedev took Edmund to bits. So it may well be that he has one, maybe two more matches left in him, and he actually wins this comfortably. I kind of prefer the 6-love because 80-1 is just too long for a player in this situation. But under 8.5 games is 4.25 with Marathon currently. Mm-hmm. So that's another option that I like. So I either think backing Edmund or one of those two does make some sense to me.
It does make sense because after two lost finals in a row in 2 weeks, two great tournaments, Rogers Absolutely. Cup and Washington, I think that his mental problems will affect him right now because, of course, you are devastated when you are losing 2 straight finals. And yeah, probably he might retire or at 2.55 Edmund going for the underdog there looks good. How about you, Snize? Do you have any opinion about this match?
Yeah, I actually answered James in the chat there. I said, and if he's fit, he should. But he's gone back-to-back finals. He looked really gassed and just mentally just crushed by Nadal in that final. And I think he should well be feeling it right now. 2 long runs, 2 lost finals in a row. Just losing 1 final is hard enough on the psyche, and now he's lost 2, and he got beat down. And with the U.S. Open, as I said, not far away at all. For him to go in here and put in another killer week, go deep, and then just have a little bit to recover before the U.S. Open, not really likely. So definitely opposing Medvedev in some sense here. My look would probably be to go for Edmund to win the first set. Would probably be my look here. It is a pretty short turnover to come here to Cincinnati, down to Cincinnati from Toronto. That's a bit of a flight. That's a bit of a travel. So that he comes out a bit rusty would probably be my look there. So Edmund to win the first set. We most likely avoid the retirement scenarios there. And so, yeah, if he's actually not 100%, definitely Edmund to win the first set.
Yeah, you can get 2.47 with Pinnacle.
That's nice. Oh, that's a great set of odds, yes. How about the outright market for the tournament, Snize?
Yeah, so as James talked about, we really have a big disparity between the top half and the bottom half. So the top half, we have Djokovic, we have Isner, Khachanov, Kyrgios, all these players. I actually took a shot on Sunday, a small shot with Kyrgios to win that quarter. He's beaten Djokovic before. I think he might be on a little bit of an upswing mentally. He's looked more focused than he has in a long while these recent weeks. He did obviously get beat down by Edmund, as Alex tipped, in Montreal. But that was understandable after losing in the winning the Washington final. He was absolutely unplayable versus Sonego. He lost 5 points on serve in the entire match. So he looked absolutely scintillating there. And I think he eyes Djokovic in the draw, who he's talked a lot of shit about. He does not like Djokovic, and he would love to beat him. So I got him at
He just hates all of
12
this
times
stuff,
the
doesn't
money.
he? He hates all the
11-1. So I don't know what he's going to open at, but I would certainly recommend taking a look at Kyrgios to win that quarter, because Djokovic has a tough test here. It's not even a certainty that he gets through. He's going to face Sam Querrey, who beat him last time they faced 3 years ago at Wimbledon. That's a big server who's been playing well, in good form, on hard courts that fit the big servers. He's then likely facing John Isner, another big server, on fast courts.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be a tough one for Djokovic. It's not even a guarantee. He could be a bit rusty after obviously his Wimbledon exploits. So that would be the look there. But other than that, probably just avoid the top half there. Going at the bottom half, like James loves to say, it makes sense opposing Zverev in some way, which is what I've done, but not on the outright market. I've actually gone down to the fourth quarter, and I took a shot with on Sunday with Guido Pella to win that quarter at 19. I think he's shown over the last couple of weeks that he's much more than a clay court specialist now. He's really taken the other surfaces by storm. He played extremely well at Wimbledon, and he continued that form and has played well over on these hard courts. The draw is obviously wide open. Team withdrew. He has a path of right now David Goffin, who he recently beat in Montreal. He's going to face Manarino or Kukushkin, and then if Nishikori makes it, he'll face Nishikori in the quarterfinals. So a very, very manageable path there for a great price to win that quarter.
Yep.
And also now, whenever that market opens, I would also take a small punt on him to make the final. Opposing Zverev in some way makes sense. It was available at 81 on Sunday. I don't know what it's going to open at, but he's not going to be as big of an underdog. That 81 or whatever it's going to open at is not going to be value in a potential semifinal versus Zverev if he makes it there. So those would be my looks for the bottom half of the draw. So I'm going to go with a quarter of a unit on Peja, whatever price he opens at to make the final. Should be available at Bet365.
I think it's a good point. If you can get on the Bet365 markets, to me it's very obvious. If you can get half of the outright price on someone to make the final in the bottom half, take that. That's a lot better than taking the each way, because the final is by far going to be the most difficult match. And I think a lot of players could make it through this bottom half. I mean, I'm looking at the bottom half of the Masters event, and I'm thinking Kekmanovic could win that bottom half if he plays the way he did in that first round. He could win that bottom half. So I think certainly Peja, it's a nice shout. Opposing Nishikori makes a lot of sense, as well as opposing Zverev. So I completely agree with that as well.
Okay, let's go match by match, or our top tips from this competition. The ones that we already know and we already have odds for. James, please give us your top tips for the ATP part.
Okay, so there's two things I like here. The first one, unfortunately, has come in a little bit since it opened. I'll see what it is exactly now, which is the first set tiebreak in Kyrgios-Khachanov. Now, as Snize said, Kyrgios served incredibly well yesterday. That was quite an annoying match for me, because we had the first set tiebreak at 3-1. And it got to 5-all, and then Sonego went love 40 down. So that's not great. But I imagine even if Kyrgios is playing well, that it's quite likely Khachanov can hold his own from the baseline. I don't want to jinx myself, because Khachanov really, he has had some dreadful sets recently, but he's a tall guy. He's a monster if you see him live. Very big guy, huge serve, very heavy hitting. At least in theory, he really
bigger
should
than
be
Del
beating...
Potro. Bigger than Del Potro?
I mean, yeah. Honestly, have you seen him live, Khachanov?
No, no.
I was scared of him. I mean, the guy, his wingspan is insane, and obviously he's very tall. Anyway, so in theory, at least, he should be holding his own from the back of the court, and he's got a huge serve. So I quite like the first set tiebreak was 3.4. When it opened with Bet365, which was an absolute steal. whereas now it's 3, which I think is still long. I would have had that at 2.5. So I think that's still long, but a little bit trickier. So that's the first thing on that match. You could probably also, oh yeah, no. So the overline is 23.5, which tends to tell you that they're expecting a very tight match, and I'm not a huge fan of that. But yeah, I think the first set tiebreak at 3 is a very solid bet in that match. I would expect that to come in about 40%. And then the second one for me was to take a chance on Nishioka doing something against his compatriot Nishikori. So the thing with this matchup for me, it's tricky. I'm sure that Nishioka will be very much in awe of Nishikori, at least as a younger player. He will have surely really looked up to him, and you sometimes see in situations like that. We saw it at Wimbledon with Berrettini and Federer, that a player who all of a sudden just can't play tennis against the other player. So that's a small worry. But I quite like 3 sets in this one. I don't have the exact stats in front of me, but Nishikori's been very good for opposing recently on the hard courts away from the slams. But he's also been good in particular for the over sets bets. And we can get 2.9 on 3 sets with Marathon, which I think is good. I mean, Nishioka is the kind of player, he's a very tricky player. He hasn't got the best record of beating the top 10, the top 20, although from what I've seen, it's only a matter of time. He had a massive injury issue a few years ago where he did his knee in, and I think that's probably been something that he's had to fight his way back into. But he's been playing really well recently, and if you look at his playing style, it's not that dissimilar to Nishikori. They're both aggressive baseliners.
Exactly.
Nishioka's got a little bit more variation. He hits the ball a bit loopier. He'll probably try and throw Nishikori off. But yeah, I would definitely expect him to be able to take a set in that match. So I think 3 sets at 2.9 would be my play.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, you are not taking him to beat Nishikori, but you are taking him to force a third set from his compatriot there. Great value bets there. Snize, take it over.
Yeah, so the bets I've been looking at, I have a few that go off tonight. I'm just going to see, so they haven't started yet. 1 second. Okay, no, we're fine. So it's Novak Djokovic, who starts his campaign versus Sam Querrey. I touched upon this in the quarters outrights section here. And it is that Novak Djokovic may well be a bit rusty here. He hasn't played a match since Wimbledon. He's going to be switching from the grass to the hard courts. Obviously, he won the title here. But it can sometimes take a little time for Djokovic to get going in tournaments. That's not something that's too unusual. Querrey played obviously excellently over the grass swing, coming back from an abdominal injury, played well at Wimbledon, and did manage to come through head-to-head in a big serving matchup in straight sets. The handicap line here is very, very high. We can get Querrey at plus 4.5 games at even money, which I think is a bit of a steal. Querrey obviously has a humongous serve. Djokovic will struggle to break that serve, even though he's the best returner in the game on these fast hard courts. I think that tie breaks are a probability in this matchup, and Djokovic would have to win by a break if he starts serving first in both sets in order to cover this 4.5 line. So I've gone ahead and played Querrey plus that handicap to keep it close for at least 2 sets there. And also, we have another matchup tonight with Pablo Carreño Busta, who faces off against John Isner. And the big serving tree from America. He hasn't really been playing that well after his foot injury sustained earlier this spring. He's looked a bit off his game. Usually, this part of the season, it's the Americans' hunting ground. He usually breaks people like sticks here, even though he literally cannot break people otherwise. Serves bombs at 140, 240 kilometers per hour. But it hasn't really been that great. He's struggled a bit. He obviously won Newport, but that's one of the weakest fields on the ATP Tour. He's been pushed a lot in his matches, so I haven't really been
He
impressed.
should have
Obviously, he
lost to
got
Lajovic first
last
round
night.
as well.
He should have probably lost last night in his matchup there. And he actually lost the set versus Lajovic 6-1 the second set, and really had to fight to get through that matchup in 3 sets. And he faces a similar type of player here. He faces Fabio Carreño Busta, a fighter, a great baseliner, who has played well here. He's come through qualifying and already won 3 straight matches. So I think this will be a bit of a test here. Isner clearly isn't at top form yet. I don't think he should be regarded as a decently warm favorite as he is now. I think that Carreño Busta could well take this match. And so I've gone ahead and played the over 24.5 games here. I think that obviously, since Isner, tie breaks are almost inevitable. And I think it's very likely that we also see 3 sets here. So I've gone with the over there at 1.83 at Bet365. Moving on to tomorrow, I have 2 plays that I like to look at. One of them we've talked a bit about is opposing Zverev in some way. I already wrote this up on an article, and it's been out for most of the day, so the price has come down considerably. But if you can take a shot at Miomir Kekmanovic to win outright versus Zverev, that might be a way to go. But I went ahead and bet the 3.5 games handicap there, and I got it at 1.77 when it opened, but I think it's down to 150 somehow. Just giving a shout there. But the real bet I've gone for here is Nick Kyrgios to win at 1.70. This is, in Alex language, a 2-unit banker. I've gone full stakes here. I'm very convinced with what I saw of Nick Kyrgios yesterday. As I said earlier, he looked absolutely scintillating. And when he is on his game, he's among the very best in the world, as we saw in Acapulco, where he beat 3 top 10 players in Nadal, Isner, and Zverev to win the title, as we saw now in Washington, where he beat 2 top 10 players in Khachanov and Medvedev to win the title. And yeah, he's back here again after a bit of a layover in Montreal, and he looked great yesterday. Khachanov is a player who struggled most of the year with equipment changes with his play. He looked very unimpressive where he was dismantled by Medvedev in Montreal. Wasn't impressed with his performance at all. The pair haven't actually faced before, but right now Nick is playing focused tennis. He's certainly eyeing Djokovic in the draw. And on current form, I definitely going to have to take a side and go with Nick Kyrgios here. I think that when he's serving this well, there will be very, very small windows for Khachanov to do anything on return. And Nick has shown great grit and determination and poise during the key points. He played a lot of really close tie breaks en route to that Washington. He was down, I think he was down 2 mini breaks or something versus Medvedev in the first set in that tiebreak. It was down 4-1. Found a way to come back through that. So I think right now, with Kyrgios playing really great tennis, he's one of the best players in the world. Khachanov isn't quite at that level at the moment, so Kyrgios for the win here.
Yeah, he loves to play in the past period of time. I think that it's also he's also very relaxed, and that says a lot about him right now. I love the way he played the last match. I've seen it, and yeah, I think that I will not oppose you this time. Maybe next time. So let's repeat our plays, your plays for both ATP and WTA for our viewers to have fresh in their mind and to have a pen and paper to write them down. So James, I'm starting to you. Outrights and bets all together, one by one.
Okay, so on the outrights, I'm going to take a week off. I think if you do want to have a punt, I would go for the bottom half of the draw. That was basically my main advice. On the day-to-day bets, so in the treble article, I took Georgia's 3.5 plus 3.5 games. I think you can either take that or the straight win. I would probably prefer the handicap in some kind of multiple or just on its own at 1.85. And then the second one was Alexandrova plus 4.5 against Halep at 1.83. Then in the ATP events, I went with Hurkacz or Bautista. I think the winner of that is perfectly reasonable as an outright for the week in that bottom half to oppose Alex Zverev. And then I took Opelka if he beats Coric as an outright as well. And then the day-to-day bets, I went with. So in the women's, sorry, I've just done the women's, haven't I? In the men's,
Yes.
I went for the first set tiebreak in the Kyrgios Khachanov match. We also talked about Edmund Medvedev, which is coming up right now. So I probably won't include that one, given that people won't have much time to back it. But I suggested the second set bagel at 80-1 or under 8.5 games in that match. And then Nishioka against Nishikori, I went for 3 sets. Sorry, testing my memory there.
Okay, no worries. Don07 says paper is for flash. Viewers are digital nowadays. I'm not saying that you should write. I'm old school. I always kept my matches on paper. So if you want to see my desk, I have tons of written stuff on paper with my magic pen here. Go on, Snize, please repeat your plays and let's close this show like that.
So for the women's, we're going women's first because we love women, right? And the women's outrights, I went with Naomi Osaka, put a unit on her to win. The price at 9 should still be available as she hasn't played yet. So I went with that on the women's side. As for the daily bets on the women's side, I went with Yulia Putintseva. There is also an article at oddsmarket.com regarding that matchup to win at 2.3. And also went with Saisai Zheng to win at 2.95 tomorrow versus Sabalenka. On the men's side, outrights, I went quarter of a unit on Guido Pella to reach the final. Whenever that market opens, I will update you with the price. Yeah, that's it. And for the bets, daily bets, I went with Pablo Carreño Busta Isner over 24.5 games at 1.83. I went with Nick Kyrgios to win at 1.70. That's a 2-unit banker. I went with Sam Querrey plus 4.5 games at 2.0. And yeah, that's it. I also talked about that Edmund match, and I said that I would recommend you if we go to Edmund to win the first set, but I won't give that out as a play there, as it's, as James said, pretty shortly kicking off here. And yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, awesome stuff. Another great tennis show here over on our YouTube channel. Please check oddsmarket.com. The boys are writing their daily articles on this Cincinnati Open, and not only because next week we have another tournament, and next week we will be back on YouTube Live with Snize Master and James Tennis Pilot to preview that specific tournament and to give our best tips. Thank you for joining me, guys, and thank you for watching on the digital world nowadays, like Don07 likes to say there. Thank you, and see you next week with another tournament. Thanks for watching.
Thank you very much.
Left-handed. Cheers.